In a moment of shock and revelation, Rick Harrison, the man once seen as a symbol of credibility and success in the television industry, broke his decades-long silence. When his confession was revealed in a hospital, no one could have imagined the dark extent of the truth it would uncover. Under the growing pressure of an expanding investigation and undeniable evidence, Harrison disclosed the horrific secrets he had kept hidden for years. With a weak voice and eyes filled with despair, Harrison not only hinted at the covert activities he had been involved in, but also opened a door to a network of crimes so deep that no one ever thought they would be discovered. Rick Harrison's confession didn't just shock the entertainment industry. It revealed a much darker story than anyone could have imagined about a man once known as the friendly father figure on television. If these stories truly resonate with you and touch your heart, don't forget to leave a comment with the number 1 if you empathize with Rick Harrison, have witnessed or relate to this emotional journey. Or leave a 0 if you have a different perspective. Make sure to like and share so your friends can follow along with this unfolding story as well. Rick Harrison was once seen as the embodiment of the American dream, a man who started with humble beginnings and worked tirelessly. From a small pawn shop with his father, he began his entrepreneurial journey. Despite numerous challenges, Rick unexpectedly became a household name worldwide when Pawn Stars, the hit reality television series, was launched. For over a decade, millions of viewers adored Rick, not just because of his successful career, but also for his knowledge, wit, and relatable personality. To many, he was like a wise, funny uncle, someone who loved history and valued family. But behind the stage lights were silent signs, things that had never been revealed until now. Pawn Stars wasn't just a show. It became a global brand. With over 600 episodes broadcast in more than 150 countries, Rick Harrison became an unofficial symbol of American pop culture. He appeared on talk shows, history fairs, and investment forums. Gold and Silver Pawn Shop saw a 300% increase in revenue during its first 3 years. Rick's net worth was estimated at $9 million by 2016. However, fame always comes with strict control. Rick was so meticulous that he reviewed every episode before it aired, scrutinizing everything from facial expressions to the dialogue and editing details. He refused to participate in any shows that didn't have a pre-written script. Rick's image was carefully maintained as a principled and wise father figure. But then, a seemingly small detail suddenly surfaced. Throughout 20 seasons, no one had ever mentioned that Rick had an adopted daughter. A brief statement, but one that sparked a series of questions. The media quickly took notice, raising concerns about his personal life. Articles, tweets, and analyses from online communities spread rapidly. Something mysterious was unfolding behind that perfect image. A network of complex transactions began to be uncovered. Intermediaries and cross-border transportation activities started to be investigated. While there has been no official conclusion, the case has raised many concerns. The carefully constructed image over the years is now being challenged. So, is Rick Harrison just a victim of misunderstanding? Or is there still something that has never been brought to light? That question hangs in the air amidst the mysterious and unresolved information. The real turning point, however, did not come from financial records or international transactions. It came from a seemingly harmless situation in a quiet hospital ward. A whisper in the night from Rick himself sparked an online storm. That statement, although not officially confirmed, led the FBI to restructure the entire investigation. The secret rooms and underground passages at their headquarters were reactivated. The issue was no longer just a personal secret. It had turned into an international case, with multiple parties now under scrutiny. Those who once believed that any media scandal could be extinguished with a clever strategy now faced an entirely different reality. The internet showed no mercy. A video circulated, showing Rick lying in his hospital bed on a sleepy day, muttering a strange phrase, "A child is an island." Six simple words, yet enough to make Reddit, YouTube, and podcast forums explode. Linguists, criminal psychologists, and online communities began to dissect every syllable, every expression, every tone of voice. The big question was this a rambling utterance, or a memory from the deepest layers of the subconscious? The mysterious phrase immediately caused many to look back at Rick Harrison's past from an entirely new perspective. Details that once seemed insignificant, such as shady international transactions, strange calls to the Caribbean, and an island purchased by a subsidiary, suddenly took on a new significance. The phrase was immediately reported to the hospital's internal security department. An off-duty medical staff member, who was a blogger specializing in tracking Nevada cases, overheard the rumor and posted it on Twitter. The anonymous tweet, "Rick Harrison reportedly whispered, 'A child is an island,' quickly spread within hours. No one could have predicted that it would spark an uncontrollable chain reaction. Reddit forums opened dedicated threads for analysis. YouTube videos decoding the phrase appeared at an astonishing rate. Emergency podcasts invited language experts, psychologists, and intelligence analysts to dissect the hidden meaning behind those 6 words. Many psychologists argue that not all delirious statements are meaningless. Sometimes they serve as a doorway to the deepest subconscious. The phrase, "A child is an island," began to overshadow the ongoing financial lawsuit against Rick. Public interest shifted entirely toward the hypothesis of a secret yet to be revealed. The narrative surrounding Rick Harrison was no longer about what had been verified, but about what remained unexplained. As the public was divided between whether this was a random statement or the final piece of the puzzle revealing a profound truth, a quietly more serious development was unfolding behind the scenes. Federal investigators quietly reopened the probe into the international shipping activities related to Rick. This time, however, they weren't focusing on antiques or rare artifacts, but on more sensitive information that had been vaguely referenced in cargo declarations. A report from 2 years ago, which had been dismissed due to lack of evidence, was suddenly revisited. The report highlighted a shell company linked to Rick, particularly regarding shipments to the Caribbean through loosely regulated routes. Under the pressure from the incident at the hospital, the FBI executed a search warrant at Rick's Nevada estate, which had previously been used as a storage facility for antiques and collectibles. But in this inspection, they discovered a surprising detail: a safe containing dozens of encrypted hard drives. There were no accompanying notes, no labels or traceable data. These hard drives were hidden behind a false wall in an old basement, sealed off with biometric sensors. A team of encryption experts was brought in from Washington to analyze them. However, according to internal sources, only a portion of the data on one hard drive was accessed, and it was enough to shift the entire direction of the investigation. One of the partially decrypted hard drives revealed strange emails with cryptic phrases such as "supplement goods for the island in Q2, keep silent about IS-1, or "new shipments arriving prepared under VIP criteria." These lines might initially seem like internal business jargon, but when placed alongside Rick's haunting phrase, "Children are an island," Spoken in a half-conscious state, they suddenly become a strange piece of a much larger puzzle. Linguists and cyber investigators began to carefully examine each code, each expression. What was initially thought to be passwords or business shorthand was now assumed to be coded language for human trafficking operations. The big question began to emerge. Could these seemingly legitimate business activities be hiding a darker, more sinister system? And if so, was Rick, the man once praised for his historical knowledge, at the center of it all? The 6 words spoken in the ICU room became the first spark that ignited a series of unstoppable investigations. As investigators moved beyond financial records, they began cross-checking missing children data in the states where Rick's businesses were based: Nevada, Arizona, and California. The initial findings left many stunned. Some of the missing victims coincided suspiciously with the timeline and logistical routes of companies linked to Rick. This quickly turned the case from a suspicion of financial abuse into a large-scale humanitarian crisis. A federal task force was established to thoroughly examine the missing persons data, combining information from the FBI, NCMEC, and immigration agencies. At least 23 cases from 2014 to 2022 matched the data obtained from electronic devices at Rick's estate. Each coincidence weighed heavier on the suspicions. Even more concerning were the personal records of the victims, many of whom came from extremely vulnerable backgrounds. These included children in the foster care system, runaway teenagers, and individuals who had undergone treatment at rehabilitation centers. According to internal documents, many of these individuals had been approached by scholarship representatives, charity organization staff, or international program recruiters. It was these promises, scholarships, a better life, escaping poverty, that led them to leave their homes and disappear without a trace. They didn't vanish because they were running away. They may have been brought into a hidden system, leaving no legal trace. The phrase, "a child is an island," was no longer just a delirious remark. It had become a symbol of a key to unraveling the mystery. Investigative agencies began to restructure their entire analytical model, from finance, logistics, to humanitarian concerns, because the case had now transcended any single domain. One of the first cases to be re-examined was the disappearance of April Langdon, a 14-year-old girl from Phoenix, Arizona. She was believed to have run away in 2016 after a dispute with her family, and the case was quickly categorized as lacking investigative grounds. However, when data from Rick's hard drives was cross-referenced with data from mobile network towers, a strange detail emerged. Just 48 hours after April vanished, her phone was detected by a tower near a warehouse owned by Rick's company. This information was overlooked at the time due to the lack of any other physical evidence. But exactly 2 days later, a container with the code RH4981 was shipped out of this location and left the United States for the Caribbean. What's concerning is that the container was declared to contain restoration equipment for antiques and high-end sports goods. Yet there was no shipping receipt. Not only was there a lack of transparency in the paperwork, but what shocked investigators was that this pattern had repeated at least 5 times. Each time, the sequence followed the same pattern. A young individual would disappear, followed by a container leaving one of Rick's warehouses with vague declarations, and a destination outside the United States. These destinations, particularly 3 islands in the Caribbean, which have loose border controls, have now become the focus of the investigation. One of these islands, according to satellite maps, was previously purchased by a subsidiary owned by Rick's representative. No official residents were registered to live there. However, traces of regular shipments and energy activity clearly indicate that someone is residing and operating some kind of facility on the island. Everything seems to trace back to the place Rick once mentioned, an island for children. The destinations are often a small island that doesn't appear on tourist maps and is registered under the names of companies with no physical addresses, no employees, and no clear tax identification numbers, such as Sky Holdings, Bronze Needle Enterprises, or Seaward Ventures Limited. What they all have in common is the continuous transfer of funds between accounts in Switzerland and the Virgin Islands linked to Rick. The horrifying part is not just that this is a financial conspiracy, but a sophisticated system designed to conceal not only money trails, but also human identities. The rudimentary encrypted emails recovered from Rick's devices hint at unusual activities, such as, "Batch 3 is ready," or, "This client prefers silence." These seemingly harmless lines, when analyzed, send chills down the experts' spines. IS-1 is suspected to be a code for a specific island, while batch is a euphemism for the group of people being transported. An independent investigation has identified at least 7 shipments that left the United States between 2017 and 2021, all heading towards coordinates that are uninhabited and beyond the reach of official surveillance. The most notable destination is a deserted island named Pelican Drift, near the Virgin Islands, which was once owned by Rick through an anonymous shell company. It is now listed as ownerless in local records, a situation almost impossible for international real estate. As emails, shipping records, and missing persons data start to align, a disturbing picture begins to emerge, no longer centered around antique watches or rare books, but a dark logistical network run by the very person once regarded as an expert in appraising heritage value. If you're shocked and captivated by what you've just seen, don't forget to hit like and share this video so others can better understand the truth behind this scandal. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of the mysterious stories, chilling discoveries, or explosive truths we'll continue to bring to you. Rick Harrison once said in an interview, "Anything of value is worth preserving," but now the public is asking, who determines that value? And does value include human life? The phrase, "a child is an island," once dismissed as a delirious utterance, has become the focal point of a large-scale investigation. The whisper from the ICU is slowly shaking the legal system as it becomes clear that this is no longer just a financial case, but an unsolved mystery. What is being concealed is not just artifacts, but possibly humanity itself. Part 3 of the investigation reveals an unbelievable truth. It's not just a network of shell companies and suspicious containers, but also a digital trail left by Rick, the man once seen as the embodiment of American antique collecting culture. After the vague words in the ICU, Rick unexpectedly mentioned another island that had never been recorded in any previous documents, prompting the FBI to expand their investigation and raid Rick's Las Vegas mansion. In the basement, behind a soundproof steel door with highly precise climate control, they discovered a black notebook, not a journal, but a ledger. Each page was written in a unique code, not in chronological order. Investigators found code clusters like IS-1, IS-2, ISBH, matching the names of unregistered islands that had appeared in financial transactions. Alongside these, there was a list of encrypted names, birth years, nationalities, and symbols marked in red, one of which read, Lot 12, Shipping Schedule, July 18, 2021, Route PHX VGTIS1. The chilling coincidence is that on the very same day, the tracking system recorded a container leaving a warehouse in Phoenix owned by a company linked to Rick and disappearing from the tracking system as it neared the Caribbean waters. This container, just like the previous lots, was declared to carry sports equipment, yet no tracking code or entry documentation was recorded at its destination. A logistics expert who had worked for U.S. Customs noted that only those familiar with the intricacies of international shipping could arrange such an invisible chain of events without being detected, especially when the destinations are all outside the reach of commercial radar. The fact that a famous television personality, who has always been open about his life and business, is linked to such a complex system left the entire investigative community stunned. This forced some veteran investigators to acknowledge that Rick may not be acting alone, but rather as part of a larger underground organization that may have existed even before Pawn Stars aired. A private flight operated by RH Executive Transit departed from Las Vegas to an undisclosed location in the Caribbean. The records only listed the cargo and personnel, but what took the investigation in a shocking new direction was when a team of cybersecurity experts successfully decrypted a hidden directory on Rick's computer. Inside were surveillance videos, some showing dimly lit small rooms with fixed cameras in the background. The sounds of running water, distant footsteps, and a few faint sobs could be heard. A sticky note attached to one of the videos read, "Video H or 149 SPF 14. Individual non-compliant. Move to lower level." As the experts dug deeper, they discovered a categorization system based on inventory, such as RMTQ SBF, identified as encrypted codes that tracked behavior responses and compliance levels. It was eerily similar to how a warehouse operates, with the codes used coldly, as though they were referring to objects rather than people. An independent data analyst tracking the SVM01 wallet in September 2021 discovered a total of 14 small transfers, amounting to over $300,000. The transactions were later transferred to a private jet company, with the destination being Pelican Drift, an island previously registered under Rick through a now-defunct subsidiary. The final pieces of the puzzle came from witnesses who had worked with Rick. A former assistant revealed a hard drive she had accidentally kept, containing internal emails and flight lists. One message read, "Ensure no one sees our faces when we arrive. The port switches to silent mode." A warehouse employee with protected identity recalled hearing strange noises coming from a container labeled as fragile goods being shipped separately, but without a tracking number. When he asked his manager about it, all he received was the response that the speakers were broken. All of this ledger data, testimonies, internal documents, and surveillance footage not only describe a case, but an entire system organized like a shadowy business with processes, codes, rules, and profits. But instead of trading goods, they were manipulating lives. The phrase, "a child is an island," once dismissed as meaningless, now served as the key to unlocking the entire underground network operating through a combination of technology, legality, and media. No longer just a scandal, this has become a challenge to the entire legal and ethical system. And Rick Harrison, who once said that every object has a story and deserves to be preserved, may have told the world a darker story than anything ever revealed on television. Rick Harrison, a name once synonymous with the image of a wise and sharp-minded man on screen, suddenly became the center of one of the most significant global investigations of the decade. His personal notebook, marked with ciphers, was not just an important clue, but also the key to unlocking a series of horrific truths behind the mysterious name Pelican Drift. For years, Rick had built a perfect image, but everything began to unravel as investigators followed the coded notes in his black notebook, the mysterious cipher symbols, and the seemingly disjointed annotations that led authorities to a small island located 42 nautical miles from Antigua, where no one expected. Containing a brutal truth, on July 4th, American Independence Day, Operation Driftfall was launched. This operation involved multiple agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the Coast Guard, and international experts from Interpol. The task force was equipped with drones, advanced surveillance technology, and special search warrants based on Rick's testimony and the evidence collected from the Black Notebook. Before landing, 3 tactical teams were split into Alpha, which approached from the south, where maritime traffic had been detected by satellite. Bravo took the northern approach, where dense vegetation concealed numerous underground structures, while Charlie secured the perimeter and provided communication. We all felt as though we weren't just stepping onto an island, but into a scene that history would remember. One of the officers later remarked that within 20 minutes, Bravo had discovered a secret entrance, an expertly camouflaged steel plate beneath rocks and grass. Beneath it was a narrow, damp, and dark tunnel. The further they went, the closer they got to an unimaginable truth. The motion control system, steel doors, and windowless cold cells resembled a labyrinth designed to conceal any trace. In one main room, they discovered 15 children without identification. No clear identities. Some could only communicate through gestures, their eyes filled with panic, or whispering things like, "No one will ever find us." That statement hit like a dagger to the heart of those who witnessed it. Other teams uncovered more suspicious areas, including an evaluation room with a recording system, behavior assessment codes, and specialized equipment not found in ordinary life. Meanwhile, the Alpha team intercepted 2 ships attempting to leave the island, one of which had 3 armed men and 3 children trapped at the back of the ship. The rest vanished from the radar, turning into international waters just minutes before the operation began. On the eastern side of the island, Charlie's team discovered what appeared to be a warehouse, but was actually a fully equipped communication control center, complete with hard drives, encryption devices, and advanced data storage systems. Footage had been recorded regularly for over 3 years, showing personnel changes occurring every few months. A total of 23 children were rescued, 7 of whom were confirmed missing in the United States, 2 were from Canada, and the rest remain unidentified due to a lack of records. Some of the children wore bracelets with numbers, while others had faint marks on their skin, valuable clues for international investigators. Emergency doctors immediately began examining the children and started psychological treatment. The surgery lasted nearly 5 hours, and as the team withdrew, many members could not hide their emotions. A veteran officer, who had previously been involved in rescue operations in the Middle East, cried when he saw a young girl sitting and doodling in her cell. The drawing depicted the silhouette of a man wearing sunglasses, holding a device resembling a remote control. The Black Notebook, once a symbol of hidden power, had now become a vivid testimony, revealing a system that had been concealed for years. And most importantly, it opened up a new hope for the small beings who had been forgotten in the darkness. In a development that shocked both the public and the authorities, the FBI issued a stunning announcement. Rick Harrison's meaningless whisper in the ICU, "A child is an island," was actually a cleverly coded message, directly linked to a secret operation called Pelican Drift. This phrase was not just a random statement in a delirious state, but the key that unlocked a door to a far darker reality than many could ever imagine. Rick Harrison, once a famous TV personality from the Pawn Stars show, was no longer just a defendant awaiting trial. The investigators confirmed that he played a key role in establishing and operating a detention facility, one that was supported by his own personal reputation and resources. Then, a chilling question began to echo in the minds of the agents. If the first location was IS-1, then what about IS-2 and the third island mentioned in the Six Islands notebook? The horror didn't stop there. An even more shocking discovery was a black leather-bound notebook found in a hidden compartment under the industrial freezer in Rick's basement in Las Vegas. It wasn't just any simple journal. That notebook was a detailed blueprint of an extremely sophisticated network, meticulously documenting the procedures for transportation, logistics, and distribution, all described in code. One phrase in the notebook sent chills down the investigator's spine. To build Q4 confirmation. This wasn't just evidence of a new location, but a sign that it was in the final stages of construction. By tracking bank transactions from 8 months prior to Rick's arrest, the financial investigation team discovered that over $1.3 million had been transferred through a chain of shell companies linked to a construction contractor based in the Philippines, previously suspected of involvement in illegal activities in Southeast Asia. The final leads pointed to a contract signed by Seaward Ventures Limited, the company that owned Pelican Drift, concerning a rehabilitation and lodging facility on an undiscovered island. Satellite imagery from the end of 2023 confirmed that a new plot of land had been cleared, located about 40 kilometers north of Muro Coast. The island was unnamed and did not appear on any commercial maps, but there were clear signs of a helicopter landing pad and quickly and systematically erected cubicle structures. Infrared images showed 3 hotspots, evidence of human habitation or shelters. Worse still, the final pages of the notebook listed 9 individuals under the heading Transport to IS-2, with detailed notes beside each name, including the words, No valid ID. An electronic payment of $145,000 was ready, accompanied by a note stating that thermal shielding had been completed. Adding to the ominous tone were subsequent orders, including solar panels, water filtration systems, and soundproofing, indicating that IS-2 was being constructed as an independent facility capable of operating for long periods without detection. With mounting evidence, a joint task force comprising the FBI, the Philippine Counterintelligence Unit, and the International Special Operations Unit was formed with the goal of locating and eliminating IS-2 before it could become fully operational. Using data from GPS logs, shipping receipts, and weather reports, they identified 3 small supply boat trips over the past 6 days, showing that preparations were nearing completion. The investigation is still ongoing, and the truth is only beginning to be uncovered. If IS-2 is real, who is operating it, and how many more islands remain undiscovered? In February, March, and early April of 2024, 5-hour trips from Batangas City continued. The listed cargo appeared harmless: sports equipment, rehabilitation tools, and educational supplies. However, files recovered from Rick's computer tell a different story. A password-protected Word document retrieved from the electronic trash bin, revealed internal labels such as Lot M3, the 3rd shipment of the month with 7 units, annotated with "safely secured, no need for increased sedation for Rick and his network." The next line is chilling. These children are not people, they are cargo units. When the task force finally arrived at the IS-2 facility, they found a site under construction: 1/3 concrete bunker, a supply warehouse, and a carefully enclosed vegetable garden. No adults remained at the location, but the reconnaissance team discovered 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, in a state of shock and extreme exhaustion. They were immediately airlifted by military helicopter to a safe house in northern Luzon, located in the third unfinished bunker. The investigators found a handwritten manuscript titled Establishing IS-3, which contains notes from a trip near Haiti and a completed survey report on an uninhabited seabed. This is the first concrete clue about the third island. The evidence clearly indicates that Rick intended to expand his network into the southern Caribbean, a region rarely patrolled and resembling a luxury resort. The implications are truly terrifying. How many such islands exist? How many tropical paradises are actually a front for the unimaginable? Rick Harrison couldn't have built this network on his own, even though his name is now at the center of a media storm. In reality, Rick was only able to operate in the shadows for so many years thanks to an invisible but powerful force: his reputation and the active and passive complicity of those around him. His image as a friendly father figure on television, an educated man, a historian, a family man, and a fair boss became an almost impenetrable armor. A pattern of concealment the world is only just beginning to understand. For over a decade, Rick maintained tight control over every frame of the show, every line of dialogue, every camera angle had to be personally approved by him. A producer who worked on the first 3 seasons of Pawn Stars revealed that Rick always insisted on having the final cut, never allowing scenes that made him look weak or out of control to air. The role of his business and legal associates was also undeniable. Shell companies like Seaward Ventures Limited and Sky Logistics were established through prestigious law firms in the United States, Switzerland, and Panama. They handled the paperwork that created a veneer of legality but never asked questions. "We were just following the contracts," said one former financial employee who asked to remain anonymous. No one was allowed to inspect the goods. We only processed the transaction codes. This systematic indifference upheld a structure that was nearly undetectable from the outside, a parallel world hiding in plain sight. Even celebrities who had once appeared alongside Rick expressed shock. But some have begun to recall strange details. Rick always avoided events involving children and once said, "Adults shouldn't have kids unless they know how to raise them with an iron fist." What once seemed like eccentric remarks now sound like chilling warnings. Even more frightening is the silence that persists among those closest to Rick, people who saw the suspect but were too afraid to speak out. A former delivery driver who worked for Rick from 2017 to 2021 said he once heard strange noises coming from a steel container as he loaded it onto a truck in the middle of the night at a warehouse in North Las Vegas. When he tried to call the police, his supervisor bluntly told him, "Do you know who he is? Do you want to lose your job?" And so, he chose to stay silent. Once again, the power of crowd psychology has shown its dangerous influence. Fans didn't just defend Rick at all costs. They attacked anyone who dared to question him. A woman who filed a complaint against Rick in 2018 faced intense online harassment, lost her job, and eventually fled Nevada out of fear. Acts like these allowed Rick to avoid scrutiny for years before the truth finally came to light. Reputation is not a crime. But when it becomes an impenetrable shield used to silence victims, conceal the truth, and manipulate the public, reputation itself becomes an accomplice to the crime. A crime polished by charm and admiration. The final 6 words of his hospital confession, "A child is an island," did more than reveal a horrifying dark side. They exposed an entire culture of complicity, from the media to the legal system to public opinion. It forces us to ask, How many times has the truth been buried simply because the whistleblower wasn't famous enough and the accused was too famous to be doubted? As Rick's confession spread rapidly from the United States to the rest of the world, an unprecedented journey began to uncover the island where dozens of children were once held illegally. But as if there were more layers of crime, a hell beyond the gates of hell, Rick didn't just mention Pelican Drift, where 23 children were rescued. He also alluded to another location, a rambling, delirious statement that opened the door to a new investigation, deeper, darker, and more dangerous than anything previously uncovered. Meanwhile, in the United States, the Rick Harrison case has evolved into a large-scale criminal prosecution. The Department of Justice has officially announced that it will expand its indictment not only against Rick, but also against a network of unidentified individuals believed to be involved in transnational human trafficking, money laundering, and the destruction of federal evidence. So far, 38 victims have been identified, with 12 of them confirmed by name. However, humanitarian organizations believe the actual number could be 3 times higher if those who went missing between 2014 and 2022 and never returned are taken into account. With what has been uncovered, we are not only witnessing the fall of a television legend, but also confronting the darkness behind the masks built by power and money. The secrets surrounding Rick Harrison, along with a transnational criminal network, force us to reflect on what is truly happening in the world we thought we understood. But this investigation is just getting started, and the truth is still hidden beneath many layers. If you're captivated by this story and want to keep up with more shocking revelations, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel today so you won't miss any upcoming videos. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We always appreciate your feedback and strive to improve with your help. Thank you for watching and being with us on this journey. We're not stopping anytime soon, and we hope you'll continue uncovering dark truths with us. See you in the next video.